In at number 5 we have the Soyuz 11. On June 6, the cosmonauts Georgy Dobrovolsky, Vladislav Volkov, and Viktor Patsayev were launched into space aboard Soyuz 11 on a mission to dock and enter Salyut-1, the Soviet space station that had been placed in orbit in April. The mission's goal was to set a record for the longest time spent in space. The spacecraft successfully docked with the station, and the cosmonauts spent 23 days orbiting the Earth. On June 30th, they left Salyut-1 and began re-entry procedures. When they fired the explosive bolts to separate the Soyuz 11 re-entry capsule from another stage of the spacecraft, a critical valve was jerked open. 100 miles above the Earth, the capsule was suddenly exposed to the nearly pressureless environment of space. As the capsule rapidly depressurized, Patsayev tried to close the valve by hand but failed. Minutes later, the cosmonauts were dead. They became the first people to ever die in space. The last message that they sent to Earth was them trying to scream for help, but they couldn't due to the loss of pressure. All they heard from the crew was them gasping for air and then popping sounds from the air in their lungs expanding. The spacecraft landed itself perfectly on Earth, fully intact. When it was opened, they found the remains of the crew, with blood dripping from their ears and nose, and their skin had turned blue due to the lack of oxygen. Not many today have heard the recording, but it is sure to send chills down anyone's spine hearing these poor men last few minutes in space.
Number 4. Luis Elizondo. Luis Elizondo is one of the most outspoken believers in aliens and UAPs out there today, alongside Tom DeLonge, championing that he believes firmly that NASA and the Pentagon aren't telling us all the whole truth. And he would know, as Elizondo formerly led a research team to research potential UFOs. Although the project was disbanded, Elizondo never gave up his mission, believing it to be his personal calling to expose the truth. He's been quoted many times saying, "My personal belief is there's very compelling evidence we are not alone." He served on the Department of Defense and resigned in 2012 over excessive secrecy surrounding the UAP program. These aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the US inventory, nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of, Elizondo said of the objects they researched in his time there. He added that the program was founded to analyze unexplained aerial phenomena and ascertain whether or not that what they were seeing is a threat to national security or not. Kind of unnervingly, when asked about that, he said, "We found a lot. We identified anomalous aircraft that are seemingly defying the laws of aerodynamics." Which, oh hey, coming from the mouth of someone who worked at the Pentagon, that seems just a little bit suspicious, right? Right? Not just me? The quote continues, "Things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the healthy G-forces of a human or anything biological." Elizondo's gone so far in the past as to suggest that he thinks the US government has fragments of UFOs or UAPs somewhere, reverse engineering it to learn all their secrets. Sounds extremely like someone higher up didn't want people finding out about whatever Elizondo was getting onto. And why not?
In at number 3 we have Lost Cosmonaut. The Lost Cosmonauts are subject of a theory alleging that some Soviet cosmonauts went to outer space, but their existence has never been publicly acknowledged by either the Soviet or Russian space authorities. The Soviet Union attempted to launch human spaceflights before Yuri Gagarin's first spaceflight, and those cosmonauts on board died in those attempts. Two brothers who were former amateur radio operators made audio recordings which support the theory that the Soviet space program covered up cosmonaut deaths in the 1960s. One of the recordings in question is from November 1963. The recording is of a woman who died on a solo mission into space. In the recording you can hear her screaming. She is shouting about how the capsule is heating up. You can hear her screaming it is getting hot. She is frantically looking for someone to help her, but once she was up there she was on her own. It is believed the capsule burned up on re-entry and the woman died. When asked about the recording, the Soviets claimed that the space mission was unmanned and no woman died during re-entry. The evidence seems to prove this wrong, and their denial proves the possibility of the cover-up. In at number 2, sounds of Saturn. The ringed planet and its moon Enceladus have a lot to say to each other. Though it's been gone for nearly a year, the Cassini spacecraft continues to fuel new studies of Saturn and its many moons. In particular, Cassini's unique and close-up view of the system during its grand finale orbits produced data that have revealed how plasma waves moving outward from the planet interact with both its rings and its moons. Now, in a video produced by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory using this data, you can tune into the sounds of Saturn, the radio emission generated by these plasma waves as they travel along the invisible magnetic field lines linking the planet with its icy moon Enceladus. As it plunged closer to the planet during its grand finale on September 2, 2017, Cassini's radio and plasma wave science instrument picked up electromagnetic waves as it traveled through the Enceladus flux tube, a sort of conduit between the moon and the planet, bounded by magnetic field lines and through which charged particles can flow back and forth. The waves fall in the range of human hearing, and scientists have now amplified them into the audio file below, compressing about 16 minutes worth of data down to 28.5 seconds of scary space sounds. Finally, in at number 1 we have Milky Way signal. A fast radio burst was detected from within our galaxy for the very first time. We may be closer to uncovering its origin. On April 28, 2020, 2 ground-based radio telescopes detected an intense pulse of radio waves. It only lasted a mere millisecond, but for astonished astronomers it was a major discovery, representing the first time a fast radio burst, or FRB, had ever been detected so close to Earth. Located just 30,000 light-years from our planet, the event was firmly within the Milky Way, and it was, to all intents and purposes, almost impossible to miss. The Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment certainly had no problems picking it up. I quote, "We weren't even looking in the right direction and we still saw it loud and clear in our peripheral vision," one of them noted. One of the major problems with detecting FRBs, aside from most of them having been so far away, is that they are so fleeting. They've been and gone in the blink of an eye, despite being 100 million times more powerful than the sun. They can release as much energy in a few thousandths of a second as the sun in 100 years. Ideally, astronomers would discover an object and focus one or more different telescopes at it, but the ephemeral nature of these bursts removes any such opportunity. But despite these challenges, astronomers have succeeded in building up a bank of knowledge about FRBs, most of which has been based on the dozens of recorded events from beyond our own galaxy. For starters, we know they are bright flashes of radio light lasting from microseconds to milliseconds. All sky searches for them also suggest that thousands of these bursts occur in the sky every single day. It'll take many years of research to understand exactly what these signals mean. Until then, we can just wonder about what is out there among the galaxy. Coming in at number 5, SHGB02+14A. Yeah, that's a mouthful. This is an astronomical radio source and is a candidate in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, discovered in March 2003 by SETI at home. Now, the source was observed 3 times for a total of about a minute at a frequency of about 1420 MHz, one of the frequencies in the Waterhole region, which is theorized to be a good candidate for frequencies used by extraterrestrial life to broadcast contact signals. Now, the region it hailed from is usually devoid of any nearby stars. The closest star systems in approximate region of the signal include the binary star G7311A and B, which are 106.1 light-years from the Sun. Although the unrelated star G7310 is only 108.7 light-years away, less than 3 light-years from G7311A and B, all of these stars are red dwarfs, which is the smallest and coolest kind of star on the main sequence and are by far the most common type in the Milky Way. Now, there are a number of puzzling features of this candidate which have led to a large amount of skepticism. The source itself is located between the constellations Pisces and Aries, a direction in which no stars are observed within 1,000 light-years from Earth. It is also a very weak signal. The frequency of the signal has a rapid drift, changing between 8 and 37 Hz per second. Now, here's where things get interesting. If the cause is Doppler shift, it would indicate emissions from a planet rotating nearly 40 times faster on its axis than the Earth. Each time the signal was detected, it was again at about 1420 MHz, the original frequency before any drift. Of course, there are many explanations for the signal, but many are purporting an artifact of random chance, cosmic noise, or even a glitch. I'm here for aliens though. I always am. In at number 4 we have WOW. In 1977, the sound of extraterrestrials were heard by human ears for the very first time. The WOW signal was detected by astronomer Jerry Ehman using Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope. It is a radio signal detector that was pointed at a group of stars called Chi Sagittarii in the constellation Sagittarius. When scanning the skies around the stars, Ehman captured a 72-second burst of radio waves. He circled the reading and wrote WOW next to it, hence the signal's name. He was desperately searching for the signal to get a second reading, but he never found it again. Over the last 40 years, the signal has been cited as evidence that we are not alone in the galaxy. Experts and laypeople alike believe that finally we had evidence of alien life. The WOW signal is the strongest signal we have ever received from space. We may never know who or what caused the signal, but it is the strongest proof Earth has ever had that there is something else out there. Hopefully, whatever it is, it's peaceful or like Earth. Coming in at number 3, Tabby's star, also known as KIC 8462852, Voyager star or WTF star, is an F-type main sequence star located in the constellation Cygnus, approximately 1,470 light-years from Earth. Unusual light fluctuations of the star, including up to a 22% dimming in brightness, were discovered by citizen scientists as part of the Planet Hunters project. In September 2015, astronomers and citizen scientists associated with the project posted a preprint of an article describing the data and possible interpretations. The discovery was made from data collected by the Kepler Space Telescope, which observed changes in the brightness of distant stars to detect exoplanets. Now, Tabby star is not the only star that has large irregular dimmings, but all other such stars are young stellar objects called YSO dippers, which have different dimming patterns. Now, several hypotheses have been proposed to explain the star's irregular changes in brightness, as measured by its light curve, but none to date fully explain all aspects of the curve. One explanation is that an uneven ring of dust orbits Tabby's star. Another explanation is that the star's luminosity is modulated by changes in the efficiency of heat transport to its photosphere. One external obscuration is required. Now, a third hypothesis, based on a lack of observed infrared light, posits a swarm of cold, dusty comet fragments in a highly eccentric orbit. However, the notion that disturbed comets from such a cloud could exist in high enough numbers to obscure 22% of the star's observed luminosity has been doubted. It has also been hypothesized that the changes in brightness could be signs of activity associated with intelligent extraterrestrial life constructing a Dyson swarm. However, further analysis based on data through the end of 2017 showed wavelength-dependent dimming consistent with dust, not an opaque object such as an alien megastructure. Again, I'm still going with aliens. It's always aliens. Coming in at number 2, WOW signal. The WOW signal was a strong narrowband radio signal received on August 15, 1977 by Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope in the United States and used to support the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The signal appeared to come from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius and bore the expected hallmarks of extraterrestrial origin. It was Jerry R. Amon, an astronomer, who discovered the anomaly a few days later while reviewing the recorded data. He was so impressed by the result that he circled the reading on the computer printout and wrote the comment "Wow" on its side, leading to the event's widely used name. The signal itself lasted for the full 72-second window, during which Big Ear was able to observe it, but has not been detected since, despite several subsequent attempts by Amon and others. Many people have made assumptions about the source of the sound, including natural and human-made sources, but none of them adequately explains the signal. To this day, the WOW signal remains the strongest candidate for an alien radio transmission ever detected. And finally, coming in at number 1, the Giudica Cordiglia brothers. The Giudica Cordiglia brothers are two Italian former amateur radio operators who made audio recordings that allegedly support the conspiracy theory that the Soviet space program covered up cosmonaut deaths in the 1960s. The brothers claim to have acquired recordings of several secret Soviet space missions that ended in tragedy and mystery. This has of course generated public interest for more than 50 years, despite there being a large number of detailed rebuttals to the brothers' claims. In the 60s, the brothers claimed to have heard radio communications taken from the secret space missions, including the dying sounds of a suffocating lost cosmonaut. One of their most famous recordings was made on November 28, 1960. After about an hour of listening to static, the brothers recognized an SOS signal that seemed to be moving away from the Earth. In 1963, the brothers claimed they recorded the voice of a female cosmonaut entering the Earth's atmosphere in a malfunctioning spacecraft. In the recording, she is heard to have cried out, "I'm hot," as it burnt up. In total, the Giudica Cordiglia brothers released 9 recordings over a period of 4 years. The details were as follows. May 1960, a crewed spacecraft reports it is going off course. November 28, 1960, a faint SOS Morse code signal is sent from another troubled spacecraft leaving Earth's orbit. February 1961, a cosmonaut is audibly recorded suffocating to death. April 1961, a capsule is recorded orbiting the Earth 3 times before re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, days before Yuri Gagarin made his historic flight. May 1961, an orbiting spacecraft makes an appeal for help after going out of control. October 61, a cosmonaut loses control of his spacecraft, which veers off into deep space. November 1962, a space capsule misjudges re-entry, bouncing off the Earth's atmosphere and out into space. November 1963, a female cosmonaut dies during re-entry. April 1964, another cosmonaut is killed when his capsule burns up in the Earth's atmosphere. Since the 60s, critical analysis of the recordings has cast doubt on their provenance. For instance, audio transcripts reveal that none of the cosmonauts were supposed to be Soviet Air Force pilots, followed standard communication protocols such as identifying themselves when speaking or using correct technical terminology. Fishy fishy. Still, I have doubts. I think something greater is going on here.
Number 5. The story of Edgar Mitchell. Edgar Mitchell is a storied man. He's part of an incredibly exclusive club out of 12 other people who can claim that they have seen the Earth standing on the surface of the moon. I assume they all have a group chat together. He's best known for typing 80 lines of code to save the Apollo 14 mission as it descended to the moon in 1971. He was the 6th man to ever walk on the moon, and he is a devout believer in aliens being out there. He insists that he knows that top government and military officials were hiding the truth behind aliens in New Mexico. He said it was a known secret that alien spacecraft were responsible for disabling nuclear missiles and shooting them down, supposing that aliens are directly involved in intervention to prevent us from destroying the planet. Which, if that's the case, I've got nothing but thanks to give for our extraterrestrial friends. Thanks for that. We're not that responsible. He goes on to insist that the Roswell incident was real, and the government had covered it up and buried it as a conspiracy theory to deter people from finding out the real truth, which he believes NASA thinks the public simply wouldn't be able to handle. In 2004, he told a Floridan newspaper that he knew of a secret cabal inside the American government that was responsible for studying alien bodies, and that after JFK, this group no longer answered to the president and didn't include the commander-in-chief in their briefings. Mr. Mitchell is quoted as saying, "They all know that UFOs are real. The question is, where are they coming from?" Now, NASA didn't quite have the same tune. NASA themselves obviously denied all of Mitchell's statements, saying that Edgar Mitchell is a great American, but we don't share his opinions on this issue. Well, of course. If you've been sitting on a secret for 60 years, you're not gonna fold over one guy, but a bunch of evidence? Well, maybe. My goblins, you know what time it is. If you've been digging the scares, stick around and subscribe for some scary stuff every single day. Okay, let's creep on.
Coming in at 4, FRBs. One of the biggest mysteries out there in the universe is, of course, is there something other than just us, or are we alone in the universe? That's the question. Well, as of August 14, 2019, we have inched closer to an answer. An astonishing 8 new repeating audio radio signals known as fast radio bursts, aka FRBs, have been detected flaring from deep space. Very creepy indeed. At the beginning of 2019, just one of these signals was reported to flash repeatedly. However, in January, scientists reported a second repeating one. This means we're beginning to build a statistical database of repeaters, which would help astronomers figure out what these signals actually mean. These FRBs are perplexing and are detected as spikes in radio data lasting just a few milliseconds, but in that time they can discharge more energy than 500 million suns. I quote, "Just as some volcanoes are more active than others, and you can think a volcano as dormant because it has not erupted in a long time, this can be said about FRBs. There is also a frequency drift. The first 2 repeaters showed a downward drift in frequency, with each burst getting successfully lower, kind of like a sad trombone sound effect. As of right now, scientists are attempting to figure out where the FRBs are hailing from and what exactly the signals mean. Perhaps it is from extraterrestrial life, telling us they're out there, or perhaps it's something far more sinister."
Number 3, the signal. Now, when it comes to aliens, we all kind of assume in the back of our heads that our first direct contact with them is going to be very up close and personal. That they'll come down and hopefully we'll see them face to face or face to mandible, or perhaps we'll see their ships descending on us and it's already too late. But what if our first contact was something else? A radar signal, a noise through the silence of space. In 2003, astronomers working for the SETI, short for the Search for Extra Intelligence, a project dedicated to hunting for extraterrestrial life, were using a massive telescope to look to the stars. Now, nothing much came of it except for a series of unexplained unexplained radio signals from the skies. These signals all disappeared over time except one, which was growing stronger and stronger. The signal comes from somewhere between the constellation of Pisces and Aries, and curiously, the signal is at a frequency that absorbs and emits energy. Naturally, the researchers found this a bit interesting. Some of the astronomers believe that this could be a frequency that extraterrestrials are using to try and get our attention, like an intergalactic "you up" text. While it could very well have turned out to just be totally nothing or some sort of natural explanation that I'm not nearly smart enough to understand, I'm gonna err on the side of extraterrestrials. But we have to wonder what the signal was, right? I mean, we have to admit that's a bit suspicious, that there's something worth looking into there. Now, this story is from 2003 and I had trouble finding an update on it, but who knows? Whatever was broadcasting that could still be out there. Number 2, Blue Book. Now, I think we all kind of secretly suspect that some of our tax dollars are going to research aliens. I mean, what else are they doing all day? Well, in one form or another, government agencies have always been researching UFOs and UAPs. Since 1949 to 1969, Project Blue Book was the code name for a secret government research division dedicated to analyzing UAP technology, analyzing whether or not UAPs on record were threats to air and national securities, and just what any of this stuff in the sky was. It was basically the closest thing we had to a real-life X-Files department, as far as we know. I mean, there could be an even more secret one. Surely with all that government money, they must have found something special, right? Well, if you'd like to feel like Agent Mulder yourself, you can scroll through 130,000 pages of declassified documents from UFO specialist John Greenwald, who made it all available for free online. He's a defender of free information. Greenwald says secrets are not bad things. I think we should know about this, and it should be in the history books. John, I completely agree. All this stuff about cover-ups, we can totally handle finding out aliens are real, okay? You know, we're big now, we're responsible, we learned about Santa, we can do this. A couple years ago, we experienced a wave where there were clowns hanging out on the street corner of like every rural street in North America. We got over that. We all saw Tiger King together. Aliens won't even be that weird, I don't think. Now, Project Blue Book was officially disbanded because according to a joint review, nothing significant ever came from it. Now, since then, it was thought that no government agency was looking into UAP research at all, except until the UAP document quietly dropped this year, you know, sneaking it under the door that NASA and the Air Force had been researching aliens and possible sightings this whole time under everybody's nose, and they leaked a bunch of documents and footage, and you should look it up after this video because I'm not joking, it's totally real. It seems just like us, NASA can't rest until they find the truth out there. Number 1, new developments. We are probably coming to one of the most exciting times in UAP history, as after the UAP report came out, there is probably more legitimacy towards the discussion around the serious existence of extraterrestrial life now more than ever. As of October 2022, NASA is pretty much coming clean and opening a new study into the research of UAP and extraterrestrial life. 16 hand-picked specialists have been selected to analyze former data and determine how to go forward observing future events. Now, the study is less focused on whether or not previous sightings are confirmed UAPs, since it's kind of hard to ascertain with missing data. So it's more focused on what observations will be needed to understand UAP sightings going forward. The team is going to include researchers and key personnel from all divisions, all walks of life, notably including former astronaut Scott Kelly, who formerly served as a pilot for the Space Shuttle Discovery, and also once held the world record for most days in space, so he probably knows a thing or two about objects floating in the stars. Now, Kelly himself doesn't personally believe aliens have been to Earth yet, saying, "I think there's life in the universe. Hopefully intelligent life, but I don't think they visit planet Earth." So there's some skeptics on the team, but hey, at least they're finally coming out to get to brass tacks on this thing. Officially, openly, the government is talking with us about studying this phenomena. This is amazing. Now, you know how scientists are. They gotta have some numbers on a paper before they'll believe it. An associate administrator at NASA, Thomas Zerbchin, said, "Data is the language of scientists and makes the unexplainable explainable. Exploring the unknown of space and the atmosphere is at the heart of who we are at NASA. This is maybe the most exciting time in history to be a UAP fan."